Dancing to miss 4 games in late June or early July, she will travel to Chile to play in the American W Cup with the Brazilian national team. Damiris Dantas will be absent for approximately 5 games, and USA Basketball was wondering if this was a possibility. Did Caitlin want to travel to Paris for the 3v3 team? Did Kayla Clark have another way to get to Paris? The USA women's basketball team 103 team off Gilia Lane, working out while wearing fever gear due to 2 recent bombshells. Damiris Dantas is out, and Caitlin Clark has told Team USA no. If you agree with Caitlin, please leave a 100% CC in the comments section at this time. This goes beyond basketball. It's about respecting leadership and understanding your earth. Let's break it down. Was this a possibility? Did Caitlin want to go to Paris for the 3v3 team? The response from Clark and her team was straightforward. No. She didn't want to go to Paris. Dantas didn't just take a break. She left the Indiana Fever in the middle of a crucial part of the season. And this wasn't a last-minute problem or a random injury. It was planned. She is expected to miss 4 to 5 games. Dantas to miss 4 games in late June and early July, because she's going to Chile to play for the Brazilian national team in an American W Cup. That's crazy, bro. Now consider this. The Fever are already barely hanging on, their record is shaky, their momentum is fading, and they're fighting just to stay at 0. 500 is the absolute minimum required for respectability. Additionally, one of their key players leaves during the season's most crucial stretch, when they need to win 2 of 3 games to stay at 500 to make it to July. They need to win 3 games. To make matters worse, the coaching staff didn't seem to trust Dantas in the first place because she didn't play against elite opponents like Aya Wilson. But somehow the team was still depending on her to be in the rotation if she wasn't considered valuable enough to be used strategically. How much of a loss is this? Or more importantly, how bewildered is the Fever's internal leadership? Dantas wasn't even considered valuable to play yesterday. So if that's against the grain, how is she supposed to handle Nneka, who has been better than Aya Wilson? The situation becomes more dysfunctional because Dantas is away on international duty and the Fever cannot even qualify for a hardship exemption, so they are forced to either make do with their limited depth or ride it out. This neck has been better than A, but she can't. She's not good enough to come on and play against Aya Wilson, so how will she be good enough playing as neck? The Fever are now scrambling to find a long-term roster move. And this isn't just a hypothetical one. Players like Jillian Elaine, who didn't impress in preseason and hasn't proven anything at the WNBA level, could be part of the answer just because she's available. Jillian Elaine has been working out with Fever recently, which makes sense because if you guys have looked at practically every single hardship player or each and every player that has been added is a player who was previously on the team. For example, the Valkyries brought back Chloe Baby, Caitlin Chen, Lutisha Amiher, and everyone else. This is a rumor, and while I think there may be some truth to it, I would like to see how she does. I didn't think she looked good in preseason, but it's something that gets worse. The last player they signed, Brianna Turner, has been a complete failure. She can't shoot, defend, and barely makes it on the floor. Now that Danta is gone, Turner is being asked to play more minutes, which isn't a rotation. Let's face it, Dance. Departure is survival mode. Didn single quotes to cause. Rather, it revealed them. This was a roster kept together by marketing and hope, not basketball logic. And when someone like Dantas departs to play abroad not because of an injury or internal conflict, it makes it abundantly evident that Bree Turner was their final addition. By the way, Bree Turner spent the entire meme not sure how the Fever got into a situation where you have to decide whether to play Bree Turner. Don't play him or play a nobody. At this point in time, Bree Turner is not even a good defender and is unable to shoot from more than 2 feet away from the basket. In the end, what happened with Caitlin Clark and Team USA isn't just a misunderstanding. It's a complete failure in leadership, branding, and respect, regardless of the amount of harm. For example, we're left with Bree Turner's choice. But I've talked about Bree Turner enough in a video that will be released later today. And then who might step in to replace Dear Stance? I don't know if they wanted Caitlin Clark or Caitlin Clark to play. They either didn't want Caitlin Clark to be there, or they didn't want Caitlin Clark to be the person we don't know. At first glance, the headline suggested that Caitlin was being left off the Olympic Games. But the truth is out. Caitlin Clark was never really wanted, and when they tried to backtrack, was already too late. Fans were incensed by the roster alone. But the deeper story is even more offensive. The USA offered her a consolation prize, a spot on the 3x3 team. Not the main stage or the roster that really defines global women's basketball, but Caitlin declined. The USA wanted the biggest star in the game right now to play half-court in a side event that hardly receives national attention. Is it possible that Caitlin would want to travel to Paris for the 3v3 team? Clark and her team responded simply that she did not want to travel to Paris. At this point, Team USA attempted to recruit her to play 3-on-3 basketball, which incidentally is a style of basketball that I don't think she's very good at. It requires switchability, 1v1 defense, and I don't think she would be a great isolation scorer. This isn't because she was arrogant or superior, but rather because the path they offered wasn't legitimate. She didn't have the ranking points to play 3x3 in Paris. She hadn't participated in official tournaments. And the only way she could have qualified would have been to skip WNBA games in the middle of the season to play in minor events abroad. It wasn't a fair opportunity. It was a setup, and yes, it is. Christine Brown's discovery that Team USA was attempting to get her to play 3v3 when she wasn't permitted to do so according to FIFA regulations. She was never going to be permitted to play Zabit. Crazy. They were offering her the chance to risk her professional season for a side door entry into a team. She should have been leading from the front. Christine Brennan claims that they were still discussing the possibility of finding a way to get her to play. To be fair, the only way they could have done so was by having her miss time during the WNBA season to participate in a few 3-on-3 competitions, because there were World Series 3-on-3 tournaments that I'm fairly certain could have propelled her to the top 50. And the embarrassment increases when you realize that USA Basketball was aware of this. They knew the eligibility requirements and that she lacked rankings, but they still extended the offer as though to say, look, we tried. However, fans saw through it. Seeing a federation that was more concerned with appearances than with integrity, and Caitlin didn't fall for it. However, this is where it hurts the most. Would have happened had they made the correct decision from the beginning. This player who has competed for her nation in U16 and U19 competitions, always carried herself with pride, poise, and perseverance. But when it came time to represent Team USA on the biggest stage, she was abruptly passed over, not because of her skill or performance, but rather because, quite frankly, they simply didn't want her. They were still discussing, though Kayla Clark had never played on a national 3-on-3 team. She had experience on the USA under-16 and under-19 5-on-5 teams. So the USA women's basketball team offered her a spot on the 3x3 team. Perhaps we could find a way to get her to play, and to be fair, that was the only way they could have gotten her to play, before June found out that there was a qualifying event for her to play. No one would have said it directly. Instead, we would have heard evasive excuses like, she's not a good one, BB1 defender. She's not a fit for 3x3 style, and she doesn't isolate enough. But is anyone really believing that Caitlin Clark has changed the definition of offensive play in women's basketball? She's not just a shooter. She's a visionary, and her ability to control every team aspires to build around tempo, spread the floor, and elevate teammates. But Team USA couldn't find a spot for her on a roster of 12. That's not basketball logic. It's personal. A 3v3. basketball game requires isolation, scoring, switchability, and 1v1 defense. To be honest, I don't think she would be a great 3-on-3 player because she kind of gets sits, not her game. But the other players were still attempting to make amends by saying, "Do you know what we screwed up? We screwed up about the 3-and-re team," but it's funny when it comes to Christine Brown and some of the things she said. There's another excerpt from it, and it seems like it's getting clearer why they left Caitlin Clark off. They asked, was it because of ability? Was it because of this? Was simply because they wanted to, and that's the best way to put it. Didn't want her there, and there doesn't have to be any rhyme or reason to it because they're always trying to justify it. The worst part is that they tried to make her refusal of the 3x3 offer seem like she rejected her country. But in reality, she rejected a last-minute PR ploy and a cheap cover-up. That only made the disrespect worse. She wasn't just cut, she was made to appear ungrateful when, in reality, she had been treated disrespectfully from the beginning. It's not about a medal, it's about how we treat the game's faces. Team USA had the opportunity to create something historic by putting Caitlin Clark on the biggest platform in the world when she was at the height of her popularity. But they chose to gamble on politics and lost the trust of millions of dollars. This wasn't just an error. It was a message, and the message to Caitlin Clark was very clear. According to Correlation, she was literally ineligible, which is what I understood to be the case. Now, people are claiming that Caitlin Clark wasn't eligible to play because she declined the invitation, although Kayla Clark had never played on a national 3-on-3 team. This report claims that she had another way to travel to Paris, the USA women's basketball team 10, 3-on-3 team. If Dantas' departure was a warning sign and Caitlin Clark's rejection of Team USA was a blow to her pride, then the larger reality that we must face is that both of these incidents are signs of a dysfunctional system that is mismanaging talent, mishandling pressure, and slowly unraveling right in front of us. Start with the Indiana Fever, a franchise that was supposed to be rebuilding around the most electrifying rookie in years. They had the #1 pick. They had the spotlight. They had momentum, and what have they done with it? They've surrounded Caitlin Clark with a shaky bench, inconsistent rotations, and no clear offensive identity. They're not building around her. They're living off of her, and this is a very, very lazy front office. I believe that they're probably too busy worrying about how they're going to market their next marketing campaign, which will be to sell more t-shirts and to show off to the rest of the league. These aren't championship moves. Dades on a sinking ship. The irony is that Damiris Dantas' departure could have been a wake-up call or a moment of reflection. But instead, it's patchwork every week, with someone leaving and someone else being brought in at random. Brianna Turner gets signed despite not being WNBA ready, and Jillian Elaine starts showing up in fever gear again despite not impressing in preseason. Bri Turner was like was their last signing. Who made that decision? Bri Turner was in the gym the entire time, and she couldn't shoot from more than 2 feet away from the basket. The Fever appears surprised once more, as if they didn't know a key player had international obligations. It's as if this team is being run on autopilot. Jillian Elaine has been working out with fever gear lately. And I don't know why, but this makes sense because if you guys have looked at practically every single hardship player or nearly every single player that's been brought in, you'll see that Bri Turner is not even a good defender at this point in time. There was a player who was already on the team, but with Damiris Dantas leaving after the next game, it's just not good. For the Fever, things aren't going well overall. But Caitlin Clark is doing everything she can, showing up to compete every night and risking her life. Keep a close eye on her joy she played with at Iowa. The energy, the swagger, it's fading, not because she's lost her edge, but because the system she walked into was never designed to support her. Her rookie year should have been historic, and yet week after week, it's marred by chaos, injuries, awkward substitutions. tension in the locker room, a revolving door of role players, and now the fallout from her. Olympic omission. This isn't a development year anymore, it's survival before Caitlin Clark appears to have lost her smile, as if everything had affected her. This is something that is really fascinating. And it's fascinating around the Olympics. And at this point, I don't think that there was ever a chance to make the 5v5. And I'm not sure why there was ever the blame doesn't lie with the players. Rather, it lies with the coaching staff, who are unable to maximize generational talent. The leadership at the Fever front office, who used Clark's name for influence but never really wanted her in the team, and the players themselves. That hope was given to her and to the fans, but it was just a string of longtime fans. The fact that Caitlin Clark is caught between two dysfunctional systems, one that failed to provide her with a stable team to lead, and another that had the opportunity to offer her the Olympic stage, but instead gave her a dead-end offer. Maybe the most frustrating aspect of this situation. Let's face it, if she had been promoted the way male rookies are, with a team that is designed to elevate, protect, and grow, she could have become iconic this year. I would have included Jaylen Brown on this roster because she at least tries. And as anticipated, she cooked the Fever just like she did the previous year, and she hasn't done anything to anyone else. However, as I have no idea what will happen with the Fever, I just think it's likely that she's warming up outside. Fans are watching in real time as Caitlin Clark's prime is wasted before it even starts, and we're witnessing a promising team turn into a basketball powerhouse. Not the executives making last-minute roster changes that don't make basketball sense, or the Olympic selection committee that can't be honest about why they left out their most influential star, or even the coaching staff that still looks lost even after half a season of mistakes. This is a very lazy front office, and I believe they're probably too busy worrying about how they can market what their next marketing campaign is going to be, because they're watching a young star who filled arenas, moved the needle, inspired millions, and was reduced to a marketing tool without the support to actually win, like to brag to the rest of the league. And I believe that worries them more than the players they were still discussing. Perhaps we could find a way to get her to play. And to be fair, the only way they could have done so was by having her miss time during the WNBA season to participate in a few 3-on-3 competitions. So here we are with Damiris Dantas stepping away and Caitlin Clark having left Team USA, leaving behind more than just wasted playing time. It's a system that has been exposed, leaving a franchise perplexed and a fan base wondering. This isn't about a single player going off to a tournament or a rookie losing a spot on the team. It's about leadership failing talent, about vision being replaced with transient noise, and about a generation of players led by players like Caitlin Clark being forced to carry the burden of leagues and teams that aren't prepared to support them. She will be missing for games in late June and early July because she will be traveling to Chile to play in the American W Cup with the Brazilian national team. USA Basketball. Was it possible for Caitlin to travel to Paris for the 3v3 team? With that in mind, I believe it's a difficult one to watch what's going on, because I'm not entirely sure what players the Indiana Fever could acquire. And with Damiris Dantas leaving after the next game, I'm not sure if the Fever want to keep Clark or if Team USA wants to regain its honor. Accountability is the first step, because comment CCs see 100%. That much is obvious, to demonstrate that you're writing for her right now, until this league awakens.